So this is video number 5 in a series of 6 that I have been making in response to René de Vries's thoughts about modern libertarianism, spirituality, and Canadian freedom. It's a great topic. So on the Canadian side of the story that began really in Europe, we have settlers coming from Britain, United Kingdom largely at the beginning, and French. And they both brought with them streams that I certainly didn't learn about when I was going to school. The French had their whole leftovers of the Huguenot massacres and genocide, the Enlightenment of godless liberty. And the British had their empire, they had their empirical thinking, they had the might of the Navy, they had also a counter-reformation going on in their hearts. And I say it was counter to the British monarchy, who reluctantly over the decades since the Magna Carta released their so-called divine right of kingly power, reluctantly released that to the barons and the landowners and the wealthy who established Parliament. And slowly over time that became down to that Parliament was open to the people to a degree. The study of that is fascinating. In the people side, we have historical reformation taking place from John Wesley and so forth. And curiously, William Booth and the Salvation Army. That's a very interesting track to follow all in its own. We have the tales of Charles Dickens and Victorian England and everything through Britannia Rules the Waves and the New Jerusalem. Peculiar things, and yet some wonderful components to that. It arrives in Canada, and it clashes with and then mingles with, to a degree, with the French. We were given our citizenship of the country in 1867, but the empirical ideas were never clear, and we find today that the documentation doesn't fit. The Constitution is not fully ratified. The provinces are left hanging as to not sure if they're autonomous or if they're under the domination of the feds. Paperwork suggests that maybe it's the former. So we have this mosaic in Canada which never melted like America. And so we became kind of prone to this multicultural lie that was told to us as to what our identity was, is that we would never mix. We would always be pieces, broken pottery on the road, if you will. And that was a prime paradigm for installing pluralism, that you're always going to be isolated, but you have to accept everything, good and bad, which is Orwell's insanity of doublethink. So this is the kind of the momentum that we're in, and then Mr. Trudeau has the nerve to quote the lines, which I believe he was scripted to say, that we are a post-national state with no values. Well, to hell with that. That's wrong. I reject that. And we have a marvelous legacy. We just got to put the pieces together. So that's my little Canadian component to this rant.